This is video 4 exempling the American Dream Project. Video 4 is going to take you from 5A to 6G. In this section, we are actually purchasing the home that we found on Zillow from part 3. So before we purchase the home, we need to get the loan. And when you go to get a loan, you got to go to a bank. So 5 is talking about going to a bank. So 5A says, Google a bank of your choice and determine what the 15-year fixed and 30-year fixed mortgage rates are. So for this case, you're going to type a bank name and then the word mortgage rates into Google. I picked Wells Fargo. And this is, why did you pick this bank? So there's many answers for that. It can say it's the bank you go to. I'm going to say this is the bank my brother works at. You can say it's the bank down the street. You can say, oh, I saw this bank on TV. It had a great commercial. But you're going to take that bank name that you chose and you're going to write mortgage rates into Google, and this is what should come up. You don't really even have to go too far. This popped up right away. It says Wells Fargo right here on the bottom as the website. It gives you a whole table. It's got the 30-year fixed rate. It's got the 15 fixed rate. So I'm just going to take those numbers and I'm going to write them down here. That's all you have to do Googling wise. Don't do anything extra where it's like, okay, put in all your information and we'll tell you rates. No, this is all you should have to do. So where it says, what is their 15-year fixed mortgage rate? The table that was shown on Google told me that it was 3.25%, and it told me my 30-year was 3.875%. Now, be smart, shop around, look at a couple different banks and pick ones with lower mortgage rates, because then you have more money to spend during this project. Now, in this project, you will have to choose from the following options for a down payment: 5%, 10%, 15%. So this is the amount that you're going to choose to put down for a down payment. Whatever number that is, that's the remaining amount goes into the loan. So if you put more down, you don't have to pay as much interest on it, but you need to have the money to put down. So that's where the confusion gets in there. In this case, I'm going to pick 10%. Again, you can pick any of those numbers. So it's a circle and find the down payment amount. So the down payment amount is going to be calculated by taking what you circled and multiplying it by the price that you asked for the house. So remember, I asked a different price than the house was listed for, and we're going to pretend that they took my bid, and that's the number I'm going to use now. So by doing this, I found how much money I'm going to put down on the house. Subtract this amount from the total bid price and get the loan amount principal. So after I put down this amount, I only need to ask the bank for this loan amount. $2,034 or $234,000. I wish it was that low. So just a little note about real life. If you choose to take a no down payment loan and you qualify for this loan, you will need to scale calculations with help of a mortgage specialist. For this project, you're not allowed to choose a no down payment, and you're also not allowed to use an adjustable rate mortgage, which is called an ARM. Again, you might not know what that means, but just know this project, we're not using it. You could use it in real life, and it's got a different calculation to it. So let's go on to the next part of the project, and that's called the P&I payment. And I bet you've heard your parents talk about this if they're talking about buying a house. It's just fancy adult speak for principal and interest that you're paying. So we are going to take computing monthly payments, and we're going to figure out our 15-year mortgage, and we're going to figure out our 30-year mortgage numbers and how much we're actually paying on interest. So using this calculation, we are going to determine the monthly payment for our 15-year mortgage first. Remember, our P is the loan amount from 5B. So since this has a lot of letters, it tells us what each part of it is. I am going to write down all of the letters and what they equal before I plug it into the formula. And I think you should as well. So obviously we're finding R, we're finding the regular monthly payment. But P is the amount financed or principal. So as I said before, this is our number that we found in 5b. Sorry, every time I write, my camera shakes. Now, R is the rate written as a decimal. So we're going back to that one that we Googled, that interest rate for 15. Remember, we're still working on 15-year mortgage. The amount we got for the 15-year mortgage, and we're writing it as a decimal. Then it says number of payments per year. We're paying monthly, so you're paying 12 times a year. And then T is number of years. So again, we're doing the 15-year mortgage, so that's 15 years. We're now going to take all these numbers and plug it into what looks like a complicated formula. So R equals, and now where it says P, I'm going to put my P. Where it says R, I'm going to put my R, and so on and so forth. Again, watch your decimals when you write these. And watch this negative sign. This is a negative exponent. And this is a multiplication dot. This is not a decimal, it's multiplication dot. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to simplify this number and simplify this number, because I'm going to follow order of PEMDAS. And I'm doing 12 times 15, which is negative 180. Don't forget that negative. Now I'm going to multiply these two top numbers. I'm going to bring this number to the negative 180. Now I'm going to do 1 minus that number. And then I'm going to type in my calculator, 633.75 divided by 0.385, getting my monthly payment with the 15-year mortgage to be this number. So now I'm going to figure out, if I'm paying this monthly, how much am I totally going to spend on the house? So we're going to take this number from 6a, and we're going to multiply it by 12 months for 15 years, because we're paying that every month for 15 years. And this is how much I'm going to be spending on my house when I take out the loan. Realize that this number is bigger than your bidding price because you're paying interest to take out a loan. So since we're paying interest to take out the loan, let's figure out how much interest we're actually paying on this loan. So we're going to take 6b, which is the number we just found, subtract our loan amount. So our loan amount was that P up here. And this is how much interest we are paying on this loan. If you're like, wow, that's a lot of interest, wait until we do the 30-year loan, which is what we're going to do next. So flipping the page, if we're looking at 6D, it says determine your monthly payment when doing the 30-year mortgage. So our variables are going to change, but our formula is not. So I'm going to rewrite the formula written from the previous page. And I'm going to do the same thing we did for the 15-year loan. I'm going to write on the side what each variable in the 30-year mortgage should be. So our principal doesn't change. We're still going to have to pay that amount. But for our R, we're using that number that we found when we Googled Wells Fargo for 30 years. Again, it's a decimal, not a percentage. N is the number of payments for in the year, and there's 12 months, so there's 12 payments. And this is the 30-year mortgage, so T would be 30 years. And again, we're going to take all these numbers, P, R, N, and T, and plug it into this formula. For my big handwriters here, you are going to run out of space if you don't write small enough. If that is the case, just continue on to another page. Try to be it as neat as possible. The neater you are, you don't lose decimals, you don't use negatives, you don't mistake multiplication signs for decimals. -12 times 30. Now I'm going to simplify this. I'm going to simplify this section, following my rules of PEMDAS, just plugging it into a calculator to get my numbers. I'm going to multiply the top two numbers. I'm going to take this number, put it to the -360. Then I'm going to do 1 minus that number. And type that into my calculator to get my monthly payment for the 30-year mortgage. So since this is a 30-year mortgage and we want to figure out how much total we will end up spending on our house, we're going to take what we're paying each month times 12 months in a year times 30 years. And we're going to find out that for the house, we are now paying a total of $394,560. Remember, this house, we just took out a loan for this much. That's significantly higher that we're actually paying onto the house because we needed a loan. So we have to figure out the interest that we actually are spending on this by taking the number that we're actually paying and subtracting the principal to find out that we are paying a lot of money in interest. That's the price you pay, though, when you don't have the money to pay straight up for the house, which a lot of people don't, and that is perfectly fine. So, G, what is the difference in the interest you will pay for the 15-year mortgage and the 30-year mortgage? So we're going to go back to F and say, all right, well, for the 30-year mortgage, I'm paying this much in interest. For the 15-year mortgage, remember, I'm getting that information from the previous page, from 6C. And I'm going to subtract these two to find the difference. There is a significantly amount of interest that is different. So we are going to stop there for this part.